I believe that the reason God created man was for management.
Really? I have never heard it put that way.
The first thing is to be honest with yourself. You can never have an impact on society if you have not changed yourself.
God will never allow growth where there is no management.
Wow, wow, wow.
So instead of praying for things from God, pray for the management ability.
Everything I tell you is true. Everything I open my mouth and I say is correct because heaven directs me on what to say. Heaven will tell me and I will tell you it will come to pass in front of your eyes. Not behind you, you will see it happening.
God will withhold things from you if you cannot manage them.
When you look at the facts that something around 1 million people perished as a result of the actions of the British and Russian and Nigerian federal governments.
Vis-a-vis what we see in Nigeria, which is truly not, it should not be surprising. Look, what's happening in Nigeria is barbarous. It's horrible. I mean, it's complete madness, yet it's not a priority. The United States unilaterally could do almost anything it needs to do. It would be a long-term effort, but it could be done. And the United States has the capability. All the elements of power, we have those.
So why not?
It's not a priority. That's the problem. We are committed elsewhere in the world. Black West Africa is not a priority.
Anybody who changes his principles depending on whom he is dealing, that is not a man who can lead a nation.
Excuse me. They can't tell me. No way. When the time comes, it's okay. What stupid country is this? So when you see you try somebody's secret, when you like, you try a secret. When you like it's in public, what stupid country is that? What stupid country is that, I ask you? When you like, you try in secret. When you like, you try in private. They are killing my people. They are killing my people. They are killing Abiola. They are killing my people. After killing my people, you tell me to tell the secret. The person is mad. Completely mad. Tell Buhari, that's what I said. That he is mad. He cannot tell me. He cannot tell me. He's a madman. There's a contempt of court proceedings here. Contempt of court. They don't obey court order. They don't obey court order. You're telling me secret trial. Is the person mad?
I, Nnamdi Kanu, will sacrifice anything sacrificable to make sure that Biafra comes.
We hereby declare no election, no 2023 general election in Biafra land. This no election in Biafra land has been activated. We are going to make it a task that must be done by every Biafran. All measures will be put in place to make sure the adequate civil disobedience is implemented to stop the election in Biafra land.
you know the meaning of discovery? It means to bring to light something that is buried on the ground. If you can accept that, then you know that Biafra is coming. There is nothing man can do about it. It's too late. Way, way too late. The countdown has begun.
Thanks for joining in. It is Thursday, the 22nd day of December 2022, and we're here live on Biafra Global Network. I want to welcome you all. And since there's a problem with the network, and it seems I'm having some distortions. I can't even see those online. I can see the messages and all of that. But I want to welcome you anyways. We're here today. Nothing will stop us from preaching the gospel of truth and to establish the things we need to establish by what we know and what we know that is meant to be told, and the truth that is meant to be told, so that our people can get facts and get details of what they need to know, and then so that they can stand firm on the truth and make sure that we do the right thing for our generation. Because in this generation that we are, we see it as critical. It stands between the generation past, that's the generation of those who fought the war, and the generation of the people who we expect to actually have a good life. And we are standing in between the generation of the people who fought the war and the generation of the people who are going to be coming further to bring more development to Biafra. Because we see that now we're having technological advancement and growth and development, and things are happening all over the nations of the world, but yet it warrants the fact that somebody lays the platform for us to have a nation so that we can be part of it, and of course among the committee of nations doing wonders for the people. I want to welcome you to this live broadcast today on Recreating Biafra program. Today, because we have the issues that we have in hand, the criticalness of the issues we have in hand, we should be looking at critical matters, that concerns our collective interest, and especially the fact that we have been trapped in the contraption called Nigeria all these years and all this while for a long time, and the events that have happened in Nigeria, which have actually made us to realize that we have been deceived all this while and all these years. And because we have been able to recognize the deceit, we've been able to recognize, the things that are happening, we can now say that we actually have begun to get our freedom. Because the moment you begin to discover the truth about your situation, that moment you begin to get answers or responses or results to actually free yourself from such kind of problems. Because when you discover the problem, you begin to seek for solution. And that is why we have come with the concept and the knowledge of what we have to do right now, the knowledge of freedom, and which have the details, which of course is pronounced in the current code that we're using, the Water Promax code. I want to welcome you all. I can't see, I don't know why I can't see messages. I don't know whether it's generally on YouTube. It's generally a YouTube problem, but I can't see anything right now. I've been looking, trying to see if I can actually have some briefs. Even the sign of the numbers watching, the people watching, I can't see anything. I don't know whether I'm preaching to myself or I'm talking to the world. But anyways, I'll continue the gospel because I believe some people are watching. I believe that you are there. Maybe the network signal or something is going on with the whole thing. Now, today we are going to be looking at the issue of how and why MKO Abiola was killed, and shocking details that you may not know that's actually transpired, and the things that are, we can relate to the facts of the situation that we found ourselves. I want to tell you that so many things are involved and so many things have gone wrong. We are fundamentally in a very wrong line of thoughts, because we have actually believed the wrong things that we shouldn't believe, because we have been deceived all these years to actually believe these things. And this is critical, of course, but we will actually, of course, not really blame our people, because, you know, when you have a heart to actually, you know, to do things right, and you believe that every other person should have a right of thinking right, to see that everybody succeeds. You know, that have been the nature of our people. We always think that everybody live and let live. You know, that's the methodology of existence. Live and let live. And so it's been affecting the way we now accommodate the people, and then before you know it, become a problem to us. The way the Hausa kingdom also accommodated the Fulanis live and let live lifestyle. And then the Fulanis capitalized on it and began to do the evils that they actually did against the Hausa nation. And of course, you know that along the line, most of them were deceived to fight against themselves. And today you see where the Hausa kingdom is now. It is now a Fulani caliphate. It is no more called Gobir, which is the headquarters of the Hausa kingdom, but now it's called Sokoto, by given the name changed by the Hausa kingdom. And you see, of course, you can testify of the fact that there are many places in Plateau where the Fulanis, trying to change the names of the communities, you know, and all of that. So it's something that it's a plan and program that they want to actually, pass or take across the whole nations that is trapped in that contraption called Nigeria. And I told you yesterday that that contraption called Nigeria gives a legal basis in the sense of British legal system and structure or thinking, gives the Fulanis the legal basis to penetrate, the legal, in quote, basis to penetrate any aspect of the nations and do what they have to do or what they want to do, because they have been integrated by the concept of British definition of invasion. You know, when the Hausas were invaded by the Fulanis, you know, as early as 1806 and all of that, as much as they were invaded, the British called it integration. And that's why you see, you know, okay, you can hear me loud and clear. Okay, Vivian, thank you so much. I am not saying, I don't even know if I'm talking to people, but I'm just talking because I need to talk, because I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing I don't see the sign of people watching. I don't see the messages. Nothing is showing. So please, if I'm able to read the messages today, just know that I'm not seeing anything. As soon as I'm able to see messages, I will also. So thank you, Vivian, for making me see that you actually, because I even thought I was talking to myself. Well, good that Vivian just alerted me now, you know, on WhatsApp, that you see me clearly. So thank you so much for that alert that you just gave to me. Now, okay, then that means I believe that I'm talking, you know, to people. And even if, you know, even if it's not that way, based on, you know, the mind has a way of playing, you know, playing on us. What we don't know is our limit. What we know is our limitation, you know, what we know is our limitation, you know, but what we can learn is our increase factor. And what we don't know actually puts us, you know, at a restricted position where we begin to think that it is what we know that is already the totality or the summation of what is evident, you know. So that's the problem. So thank you so much for that. And so that means I have to go very strongly. Yesterday, I made us understand the concept of integration of Boko Haram into the system. And I gave you some details that you actually, if you didn't watch it, then you have to go back to yesterday's broadcast to get the details, you know, to get the details of what you need to get. So it is important now. I'm going to link yesterday's broadcast to today's broadcast, because these things actually establish or confirms the plan, the procedure that is outrightly planned by the British, using the Fulanis as proxy to actually conquer the people. It is critically planned, very, very intelligently put together. And except you are intelligent, except you are sensitive, except you are very smart, you will not code the factors of these arrangements. You know, you will not code the factors of this arrangement. And it is very, very important that you have to stay in the lane of wisdom to actually dissect the information that come to you. And of course, from this hallowed platform where we're preaching, you know, and all of that. Okay, let me see. I think I've been sent some stuff. Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. That means you guys can see me. All right, so you can see me right here, but I can't see myself. That's the problem. So it's good. It's good. It's good. Thank you so much for helping me confirm that, Vivian. Thank you so much. I'm grateful. You know, and all of that. Even the messages, oh my God, there are messages. I can't see anything. Honestly, everything, nothing is showing here. So I'm sorry if I'm not making mention of messages here because I'm not seeing anything. But I'm just seeing that Vivian sent me the messages right now. You know, it's very, very, very critical that, oh my God, I don't know why I'm not seeing the messages because I really needed to communicate with us today. But however it is, let's go on in this thing. I know that we are making progress. I tell you, the enemies will fight, but they will not prevail. We're going to succeed. Today, we're looking at how and why MKO Abiola was killed. Now, there are so many things I'm going to link here and that I'm going to reveal here that will be shocking to you. We've been hearing the story of MKO Abiola in relation to Nigeria. The reason why we are looking at MKO Abiola today is because he is relatively connected to the contraption Nigeria, at the same time having a touch or his actions or reactions or his inactions, his actions, his inactions, and everything that concerns him is linked to every nation in the contraption. So it is very important for us to reveal what the contraption actually entails and the motive behind the contraption by revealing the actions that take place in the contraption. It is only when you see some stuff happen that you begin to now put one and one together to be able to actually get to understand some things that are happening and all of that. Let me see if I can refresh and then see if the messages will now appear so that I can relate with you. Or maybe I should just allow it to flow. Okay, let me allow it flow because it's going to be dangerous so that we don't distort the process of learning today. And maybe along the line, when it is after the learning, I'll just refresh to see if I can see messages coming in. Now, MKO Abiola is a critical figure because he stood for an election that can be confirmed as free and fair in the context of Nigeria's existence, from the beginning of Nigeria's existence. In fact, the truth about it is that MKO Abiola was massively voted for. I think I'd say about 19 million people also voted for him or something, 14 million or so, I can't remember now. But so many things happened that people may be confused about. Now, I want to let you understand something here. I want to let you understand something here. What I want you to understand here is this. I want to connect this message to the preaching of yesterday or the exposition of yesterday. Remember, yesterday we had a situation where we learned about the United Nations being accomplices or aiding the conquest of the Biafra people, the Biafra nation, and conquest of all the southern part of Africa. That's talking about the southern southeast and the southwest and the southeast, and that southern part, towards the sea, the conquest. And I told you and I gave you the narrative on how we came to this conclusion. We saw the message, we saw the pronouncement of the Antonio Guterres, who is the Secretary General of the United Nations, and who said something, and he said that he is supporting the reintegration. Now, I told you yesterday that cannot be a reintegration unless there had been an initial integration. The prefix re means that occurring again. That means when you say revitalize, renew. That means it's new, then it got bad, and then you have to renew. That means make it new again. Restore. That means it has been stored, but it was now scattered, and now you have to restore. That means store it again. So when you say integrate, it simply means there had been an integration. And if you and I look critically on the process of Fulani and the zoo, or the nations in the zoo, you discover that there had been no time when we actually gave Fulani a mandate. Rather, they came forcefully into the Hausa kingdom and invaded that territory and took over the nation and turned everything upside down and caused the Hausas to become their slaves and just killed their kings and made them their subjects. Today, you can talk about the emirs, who are critically Fulani. And of course, and the emir and the sultan, they are all linked to Fulani. They have nothing to do with Hausa kingdom. They have nothing to do with Hausa oligarchy. They have nothing to do with Hausa leaders. They are only Fulani who have invaded and taken control of power. And now Antonio Guterres is now implying that that action of Fulani is actually an action of integration. It was not a conquest, because he's now telling us now they actually were integrated. And as soon as Nigeria was formed in 1914, that integration now became overall in the concept of Nigeria. That means it's now implied, it is now implied or applicable to all nations in that name Nigeria. Because as soon as Britain accepted Fulani and accepted the authority of Fulani over the Hausa nation by endorsing and giving them the status of the staff of office, and giving them power in 1960, at that singular action alone proves that they denounced the fact that the Hausa kingdom was invaded. They accepted the fact that the Hausa kingdom is legitimately, let me use that word in quote, supposed to be under the Fulani nation or the Fulani people. And so they made legitimate the conquest of the Hausa kingdom by endorsing and giving power to Fulani to conquer or to actually take over the rest of the nations that are trapped in the name Nigeria. And so seeing that now, you can now trace the reason why Antonio Guterres is talking about reintegration, because the actual implication of that statement means that the initial conquest of Fulani over the Hausa kingdom is an integration program and not a conquest, not an invasion. It was a conquest. So United Nations, who is supposed to guard borders and make sure that there's, as they call it, territorial integrity of the Hausa kingdom. And of course, in extension, the kingdoms, or the kingdoms of other nations, like the Oduduwa kingdom, the Biafra kingdom, and all of that, they now accepted and legalized the illegality of the Fulani conquest of the Hausa nation. They endorsed it and they legalized it by that single action, because through Antonio Guterres' statement, who is supposed to know better, who leads the United Nations representing nations of the world, where we have permanent members like the UK, in Russia, and UK, America, and other nations that are permanent. I think they have about 9 permanent also nations in the United Nations. I can remember now. All of these ones, someone as critical as Antonio Guterres' office, someone called Antonio Guterres, representing all these nations of the world, coming out to say that the program is called reintegration of terrorists. Now they use the word fighters here, but they didn't tell us what. The question now is, what were these guys, or are these guys fighting for? We know what they're fighting for because we can trace it to the Abuja Declaration of 1989, also ratified in 1991. And of course, they also can trace it to the antecedents, the actions of the Fulanis over time, in the centuries, over 200 years, 300 years ago, and coming like that. They can trace it. So it simply means that the United Nations understand what they were doing when Antonio Guterres said that they are reintegrating fighters into the community in that contraption called Nigeria. That means they were formally integrated by conquest and by invasion. They were accepted as people who have been integrated, even if they conquered the Hausa nation and the Hausa kingdom. Antonio Guterres tells us now that that initial action is an integration program and not a conquest. So now that they have been integrated and they are bringing more fighters, remember, the first time they came to the Hausa kingdom, they came like warriors and they dominated and killed and all of that, took over. Now they are coming again with weapons and all of that. And Antonio Guterres is telling us the same thing that happened to the Hausa kingdom, which he called integration, that the killings of Biafrans and of indigenous people, Oduduwa nation and all of that, is actually also another integration program. We should accept them because to them they are trying to make us believe by Takia that they have been rehabilitated. by that sham bringing them together, giving them cloth, and then sewing them cloth, and then telling them to speak their language on, and then giving them food, and then gathering them together, giving them maybe teach them handwork, and then now put them into the system. You tell me you are going to reintegrate terrorists into a system like that, just like that. And the question was yesterday, why haven't America integrated all the terrorists they've been killing? Why didn't they reintegrate them into their system? But Antonio Guterres is telling us that this is a reintegration program, which means the conquest of Fulani is actually an integration program. And now we have to accept this next phase of their attack and see it as an reintegration process. So now we have confirmed that. Now let's go to MKO Abiola now. We're going to link this to also the narrative here so that you can get it clearly. In June 1993, there was an announcement that MKO Abiola had won the election. Now I'm going to play some videos here that will give you some messages. Now the first video I'm going to play is the video of his campaign promise. I'm also going to show you some documents. Now you see, I told you about Antonio Guterres, right? Now I'm going to show you about Rice, that the representatives of the United States in the United Nations who came on the day Abiola was killed. I'm going to show you her message here. Now, I linked it. I told you, if you remember, I told you that the United Nations, talking about reintegration, now, when Abiola's case came up, the United Nations was also involved. Now, I'm going to bridge it here so that you can understand the involvement of the United Nations in all of these. Now, remember, before MKO Abiola became elected overwhelmingly by the people as president, he made statements. Now, there's an unconfirmed report about what happened between him and Ibrahim Babangida Babangida, the military president, as at 1983. Is it 1985 or so to yes, from 1983 or so, to 1993, when he had to resign, or 1984 to 1993 when he had to resign. I'm not seeing any message, so I can't say what you people are saying right now. I just wish I can see your messages. I don't know what's going on. Now, Babangida was already the president. But remember, before Babangida, there was Buhari. Buhari was dislodged when he traveled abroad, and of course, Idiagbon was, told to step down and all of that, and he had to stay there. And that's how that. Let's not go into those details now. Babangida came into the scene. And what Babangida did was this: he opened the economy. He was the one who brought about the structural adjustment program, where anything could be imported into the zoo. Which means the first thing they did was this: to make the economy or the nation bare, to lay it bare, let it just be open. Anybody could come in, anybody could go out, anybody could do anything. It was a strategy. Now remember, it's not all about the goods coming in and coming out. It simply means that you can import anything, including terrorism. You may not understand it in that context, but I'm bringing it to you now, right now. It was an open system. The Nigerian system was open to anything. So whatever you are, whoever you are, you can come in with whatever you want in the name of trying to boost the economy. But it was a thieving program, and at the same time, a hidden agenda to open up for terrorism. Because they could bring anything, any weapon from Niger Republic, they could bring anything, they can just bring anything there. Nobody is going to check them from there. They were bringing things in. Now let's move it to the time of Abiola. When Abiola was elected, remember, before Abiola was elected, there had been the Abuja Declaration in 1989. So the first thing that happened was this: they first established the fact that they have already held the program for Islamization. That was why you saw that all this while they were having their men after 1966, issues and all of that. Then they now took over power, and then they put Gowon and all of that, and you know, and all of that. And they made sure that the power continued to stay in their place. They were arranging the system to see that they structurally position it to be a Fulanese program or product. So they sustained that using military to counter anything democratic. Because if you talk about military rule, you will talk about lawlessness, you will talk about decrees, you will talk about them sanctioning and doing what they want to do. So they made sure that by the virtue of the program that Britain has given to their hands, they have to sustain military process until there is that Abuja Declaration that stipulates and spells out the details of the Fulanization program in the conventional way that it should be, trying to relate it to the present day generation. Remember, Usman Danfodio brought it to a point where they couldn't move further because he was antiquated, he was archaic, he was using horses and sword and all of that spare those days. But now the system has changed. Now they needed to update it and move it in the program that is current. And that will mean that they will have to train their men, you know, they will have to put their men in the military, they will have to send their men abroad to learn, they will have to learn the ways of Britain has to teach them, you know, many things that have to do with contemporary behavior and actions, so that they will be able to fuse that crude method of conquest of Usman Danfodio into the present conventional and contemporary method, which has to do with technology and democracy. So why there was a break in between that time, Usman Danfodio and all of that did all they did, and until Britain now came in and established a system and then gave them the leverage to go on. Why there was a break, that they couldn't quickly do what they have to do from that 1960 to that time, they were designing the program and trying to establish it in the context of the contemporary actions and contemporary flow. Because if they don't bring it, they cannot come with spare and horses this time around. They have to use technology, they have to use democracy, they have to use all these concepts. But they need to structurally put down a template. They now instituted the Abuja Declaration. They now sat down in Abuja and set the template, juxtapositioning it with the concept of democracy and the concept of technological advancement, and fusing it to make it effective for them to come in without people resisting them. So the first thing they did was to carry out that Abuja Declaration, which now states that every position that is of interest or importance or priority must be given to the Fulanese. So as soon as they got that document and template established and spoken and preached and taught their people during that Abuja Declaration, that was when IBB now decided to set the pace for election. Now, I will tell you the reason why the election was annulled. I'll tell you the reason why there was a break for Fulanese to continue until they are able to do another thing that will help them now accept to allow elections, so that it will be that anything they institute as democracy must go in line with that Abuja Declaration. I'll tell you that, but let me play this particular video of MNK's, I'm sorry, why do I say MNK? MKO Abiola's speech, significant speech before the election. Now, I want you to take your pen, I want you to take note of this speech. I want you to take the details of this speech to the last statement he's going to make in this speech, when he said something like, we are one nation or something, Nigeria under God. I want you to take him. You see, we have to be very sensitive to details, or else we will not understand what is happening around us. Now, I want you to take your pen, write significant things you're going to hear from this statement, and read in between lines. And then the last statement, when he said, we are under God, I want you to take note of that. And then we will now begin to uncover the problem he has, or he had, with the Fulanis. Now, please listen to this.
As president, it's not my business what religious color anybody wears.
As president, It's not my business what religious color everybody wears. Now, I want you to observe his body language. I want you to observe everything he's going to say. I want you to observe everything. I'm still going to read the document of Rice, Condoleezza Rice, or whatever her name is. And of course, Al Mustafa, who was the chief security advisor of Abacha then. I'm going to read their we're going to bring all of these things together, and then we're going to decode how and why Abiola was killed. In fact, the why is very, very critical in this sense, so that you know why he was killed, and then how it implies, how it is applicable, or it implies on the current situation that we have found ourselves, so that you will know and get information and know it very well. Most of us have been hearing Abiola. Some people who were not, of course, Abiola was, some people who are just their early 30s and all of that may not understand the story of Abiola very well, because they only came into the scene when the thing has already happened. Those of you who are 32 or 31 or so, who were just born, even some who are 35 or so, or you also may not understand it very well, But even if I'm not an old man anyways, but I was very, very young then, but I actually had, ability of details and all of that. I'm looking for, okay, I've seen it. I actually have them. This from childhood, I know how to, I remember things very quickly, and I always get information. As young as I was following politics. I understood some stuff that were going on. In fact, I heard some stories that were bigger than me. The story I'm going to give you now, I'm going to give you a particular story that is not actually confirmed, but I'm going to say it here about Abiola and IBB. But what's his name again? Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, the former military president. I'm going to give you a story that is also linked to the killing of Abiola, and of course the other part of it too, the other part of the story, that has to do with Islamization and all of that. So I'm going to bring all of that, but let me play this now. I'm not going to interrupt it. I'll play it to the end so that you'll get the details. I want you to get the details so that once we play it, then we'll begin to analyze, and then we'll begin to look at things critically. I'm going to play a video of him first, which I started now, the video of him talking and giving his campaign promise and the plans he had. And then after a while, I'm going to give you the video of his reaction after the election was annulled, and his body language also as at that time. And then I'm going to read some other reports from Al Mustafa, and also, of course, from Rice also, which was posted, is also on the internet. So let's go there now. Let's go straight to the campaign promise.
As president, it's not my business what religious color anybody wears. Yeah. In ITT, in Concord, in RCN, in Summit Oil, in the bakeries, in the bookshop, in the presses, and so we employ people purely on merit. Round pegs in round holes, period. There are so many people who work for me whose hometown I don't even know. I don't even know them anyway. I don't have to know them, because we want to be objective. If I could do that in my own small business, I think Nigeria has every reason to expect from me a clear vision when it comes to the management of the affairs of the country as a whole. Quite obviously, we need to earn more foreign exchange. We shall therefore put in place policies that will broaden the foreign exchange earning capacity of the nation. We will pursue exports and local sourcing for industry. We shall aggressively pursue the implementation of the LNG project if the logjam on the gas project has not already been broken by this administration, by this current one. We shall maximize the nation's return from oil by turning over future investment to the private sector and by removing the complex structures which makes NMPC's accountability and assessment of efficiency almost impossible. You see, there are so many layers upon layers built on this simple thing, crude oil. I don't even know whether it's oil or some mystery around it that is taking the money from the central bank. You see, I think we would demystify all these things. In my government, the daily export of crude will be published, and the price at which it is sold. You see, the issue of planned implementation is simple. You see, public things are not private. We have National Assembly now. They will do their job. They review the expenditure of government and will hold public hearing. we will no longer be hearing of monetary circulars from central bank without the bankers being told. The bankers will have to be involved. You see, like I said, every effort has been made in the past to shave people's head in their absence. It must stop. I mean, it won't be allowed. I mean, the cumulative wisdom of all the bankers would have seen us out of the problem we have in this country today. But some people, they come from IMF or they come from World Bank. What do they know about Nigeria? You see, the most brilliant doctor in Norway might not have seen malaria in his life. So bringing him here and imposing him as a medical director is like sending everybody to the grave. You see, I think all that nonsense will stop. I rely on Nigerians to keep Nigeria running efficiently, and that's what it is. You see, there will be a few foreigners who will be recommended by our people, not those who will be imposed by some foreign authorities over us. We are an independent republic under God, or aren't we?
We are an independent republic under God. We are an independent republic under God. Now, if you listen to him carefully, you'll discover that he touched very vital things. One, he talked about the last statement he made. He said, we are an independent republic under God. But he never understood that the Nigeria contraption is supposed to be under Fulani, controlled by Britain. First, he began with the concept of religion. And if you observe his body language, you discover that he was actually not interested in any particular religion. He was concerned, he was a liberal. He was just somebody who just accepted anything you want to be, just be. And he was very, very concerned about collective interest. He was, unlike, let's look at what Peter Obi is doing now. When he goes to the north, he wants to talk to favor the north. He wants to talk to favor this side. He wants to talk to favor this side and make them feel cool. Abiola was talking to favor everybody. Now, I'm pointing this out for you to understand his mindset. What you can point out from Abiola's mindset here is that he believed in Nigeria so much. He didn't believe in tribal sentiments. He believed so much. If you observe his body language, in contrast to the body language of all the politicians that have been speaking from the time, talking about they will do this, they will do that. If you observe his body language, you will know that Abiola was being sincere. I'm not saying he's a good man, and I'm not saying he's a bad man, but let's just reason. Let's be objective here now. He was actually sincere. Oh my God, I wish I can see your messages so I can know what people are saying. You know what, I can know what people are saying. Now, he was actually sincere in his submission. One, he touched the issue of religion, which was against the Abuja Declaration. The religion he pointed, and the way he said it sincerely, he mentioned the name of his companies, Concord, and all the companies that he had, that if you go there, and he was proving it by his company's operation modus. His company does not care about whether you are Christian or Muslim or whatever. His company does not care whether you are Yoruba, Hausa, and that's the truth. Abiola employed in his companies based on merit. There was no special preference given to any tribe. If you observe it, you will know that. That was how he operated his company. And this was a dangerous one for the Fulanis under the Abuja Declaration. It was dangerous. Two, he talked about publishing the daily sales of NNPC and restructuring, demystifying the concept of layers and all of that to make it look very, very opaque. That process that makes it look opaque for anybody to understand what the income and expenditure of NNPC is. He said the daily income or the daily sales with the costs or amounts sold and all of that will be published, which means that he was going to disrupt the program of Fulani taking over the oil and sucking and stealing from the oil. He was going to destroy that. 2, 3, he talked about employing the indigenous people and giving them, remember, if you remember the other man, is it, what's his name now? Is it Tafawa Balewa? Is it Amadou Bello? If you remember his statement initially, he said that the plan of the Fulani is to employ Fulanis and make sure they take over every position. If there's no Fulani available, then the next person to employ is a foreigner. And if they don't find any foreigner, they will employ local people on contract. Abiola went against that. Abiola said they will employ Nigerians. That means no tribe sentiment, no tribal sentiment involved. I'm going to bring up that, talk of, Amadou Bello. Is it Amadou Bello? Yes, Amadou Bello is his name. I'm going to bring up his statement, so I'm going to play it also so that you can get it. But now, if you listen to Abiola critically, Abiola said that I'm going to employ Nigerians. It's not going to be on sentiment. It's going to be by merit because my company operates by merit. So if my company operates by merit, then I'm going to do all of these things by merit too. So he now went against what Amadou Bello said when he said that the concept of the Nigeria that is being built is for them to offend anybody. Remember, the man asked him, he said, don't you think it's going to offend the people? He said, well, it might, but it doesn't concern us. What we are concerned is that we are actually on the program of Fulanization. Now, remember, as at that time when Amadou Bello made that statement, they were still trying to see how they can refine the process to make sure that they actually have a better plan that can go with the current generation operational system of the current generation. Remember, when Usman Dan Fodio came, they were using horses, spare, and all of that. But to conquer this time around, they don't need spare horses because that age has gone. They need sophistication, like technological advancement, like intelligence, like handling the issue of armors, democracy, the complexities of democracy, and of course the issues of technology and all of that, and science and all of this. So they needed to have people. That is why he said that if you're going to employ anybody, it's going to be people who actually fit. If it's going to be foreigners, then it must be foreigners. But if it's going to be local people, it must be Fulanis, or by extension, in contract, the indigenous people. Hello, this is not the time to call anyways, but let me just pick your call. I wanted to actually finish my preaching before, or the exposition before I receive your call. You're welcome to the program live. You're live on Biafra Global Networks. Please, may you go on.
Yeah,
yes, go on, please.
Kelechi, there is something I want to, please.
Okay.
On the comment section there,
yes.
On the down,
yes,
there is some messages that are displaying there. That's why you cannot get what people are writing.
I'm not even seeing anything. There's nothing at all. It's just giving me the busy sign. There's nothing being displayed at all. Nothing being displayed at all.
Your number is displaying there with the messages.
No number. No number. Nothing is displaying. Nothing. It's just
but on the screen is displaying something. That's why you couldn't be able to be getting the message people are writing.
Okay, are you talking about the screen? What do you call it?
As we are watching you now,
yes.
As we are watching you, there is message that
that says join those making history.
Where messages supposed to be displaying, where you normally put your name,
yes,
and messages of people used to come up. So there is message that is displaying there. Your number is showing.
Yes. There's a message there. So let me see if I can put it off and see whether it will come up.
So if you remove that message, you will be getting the message people are writing you.
Okay, let me see, because the message is supposed to come on a particular column. So I've removed it now. Let me see whether it's going to show, whether it's going to come. It's not yet. It's still giving me the busy sign. So let me see. Thank you for. I think maybe that's why I needed because I didn't know what you really actually wanted to say.
You have corrected. Your name is not showing.
Yes, my name is.
So you will be seeing the message people are writing you.
Okay, let me see. Let me see whether the messages will come. They have not come yet. Thank you so much. Let me try that and see whether it will work. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's hope it works.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Yes. All right. Let me continue now. So now, he actually went. Now let me play that message. I'm not seeing the message yet, but let's wait a little. Let's see where it's going to come. Now let me play that message of what Amadou Bello said That is the program of the Fulanis. And then I'll play this message again of Abiola for you to check the difference of what is on ground. Now listen to Amadou Bello here now.
One thing I've noticed, Premier, while I've been here, is that Northerners seem to have, I might almost call it, obsession about the Igbos. Could you perhaps explain that to me?
Well, the Igbos are more or less the type of people whose desire is mainly to dominate everybody. If they go to a village, to a town, they want to monopolize everything in that area. If you put them in a labor camp as a laborer, within a year they will try to emerge as headman of that camp, and so on. Well, in the past, our people were not alive to their responsibilities, because you can see from our northernization policy that in 1952, when I came here, there weren't 10 northerners in our civil service here. Then I tried to have it northernized, and now all important posts are being held by northerners.
Is this policy of filling all key posts in the north solely with northerners and not with other Nigerians a temporary or a permanent one?
In actual fact, what it is a northerner first. If you can't get a northerner, then we take an expatriate like yourself on contract. If we can't, then we can employ another Nigerian, but on contract too. This is going to be permanent, I should say, as far as I can foresee, because it will be rather dangerous to see the number of boys who are now turning from all our learning institutions, coming out with having no work to do. I'm sure whichever government of the day might be, it will feel rather embarrassed, and it might even lead to bloodshed.
Doesn't this damage the idea, sir, of all people in all regions in Nigeria being fellow citizens of one country?
Well, it might, but you are, new to our region, but how many northerners are employed in the east or in the west? The answer is no. And if there are, there may be 10 laborers employed only in the two regions.
Now, if you listen to him very carefully, you discover something. As I told you initially, that they are trying to get their people. That is why I said that they couldn't use the template of Usman Dan Fodio to continue that conquest. They needed to change tactics because of modernization, because of technology, and because of all of that. Now, what they needed to do was this: they needed their people to go into the field of education and learn the things they need to learn about democracy, about some things they need for actually to continue this conquest program. So if you listen to him, he said that is why you see many of our boys, that is the Fulanis, going to school and coming out not having anything to do. So the northernization program, that is tantamount to the Islamization program or the Fulanization program. When you hear northernization, remember they have conquered the north, they have conquered Hausa Kingdom, and they have now used the word north to bring everybody together under the auspices of a program that is actually Fulanization. So when you talk about northernization, you will not actually, your mind will not go to Fulani. It will just go to the north and everybody. But actually, they're in control. They're in control of the power. They're in control of everything, the resources, and everything coming from the north. So the northernization program is another name for the concept of Fulanization. So he is now saying now that this northernization program is supposed to be all in the so-called other nations in the contraption Nigeria. He is now saying nationally, they have installed it as the program. Remember, he is talking about those days in 1950-something. He mentioned 1952 when I came here, and also talked about this interview was in the 1960s, early 1960s. Now, he is talking about the 1952 when he went to Britain, where he went to get his education. They actually were going to update themselves on the information they needed to sustain the power that Britain has given to them, and to make sure that this program that has been in the north of the conquest of the Hausa will now spread to other places, which is called nationally, they call it northernization program. So nationally, they call it northernization program, but in the real sense of it, in their cultural background and their cultural behavior and the cultural analysis, it is called Fulanization, using Islam as a tool. So now, he tells you here now that the program, the northernization program, entails that their people go to study further. He mentioned their people studying and coming out, not having anything to do. Now they need to be imputed into the system to make sure that they dominate. Now let's listen to Abiola again. Check the difference. Now you have listened to that. You have seen the program, Northernization, about the Fulanis. Now, before I play that Abiola stuff again, remember, if you check the campaign program of everybody who have been coming to campaign under the, since after the 1999 election and all of that, you discover that basically they are always talking about what they will do for the North. Their concern is about the North. They make sure that when they make their statement, they actually talk about the North. But if you listen to Abiola here, he was talking about everybody. He was not giving preference to anybody. Now listen to him again.
As president, it's not my business what religious color anybody wears.
It is not my business. That is what I'm concerned about is everybody. I'm not concerned about any tribal or any sentiment of any tribe or any religious affiliation or anything. I'm just concerned about everybody. And that was how he preached anywhere he went. He was preaching Nigeria. He went to the North, he preached Nigeria. He came to the South, he preached Nigeria. He was talking about Nigeria, because he thought that the name Nigeria represented unity. He thought the name Nigeria represented togetherness. He thought the name Nigeria represents looking down on tribe and upholding a general and collective interest thing. He thought the name Nigeria was actually going to make sense when they tried to make sense, even if they know or they knew that Britain actually never had a good intention for the people. But he wanted to make a difference even under the name or under the auspices Nigeria. So he wanted to retain the name Nigeria since it is what is bringing us together. But he wanted to bring about he wanted to change the culture of what Nigeria represents, or he wanted to change the image of what Britain actually designed for that name Nigeria. He wanted to actually change the narrative of Fulanis holding sway, everybody, and just holding sway power and taking control. He wanted to make everything now a national interest in the sense that no tribe, is in control. But he was making a mistake. Ahmadu Bello and his team said the original plan which they have with Britain is northernization. It's a northernization policy, a northernization program. And he went contrary to that statement on his campaign video here. Listen to it again.
As president, it's not my business what religious color anybody wears. In ITT, in Concord, in RCN, in Summit Oil, in the bakeries, in the bookshop, in the presses, and so we employ people purely on merit, round pegs in round holes, period. There are so many people who work for me whose hometown I don't even know. I don't even know them anyway. I don't have to know them, because we want to be objective. If I could do that in my own small business, I think Nigeria has every reason to expect from me a clear vision when it comes to the management of the affairs of the country as a whole. Quite obviously, we need to earn more foreign exchange. We shall therefore put in place policies that will broaden the foreign exchange earning capacity of the nation. We will pursue exports and local sourcing for industry. We shall aggressively pursue the implementation of the LNG project if the logjam on the gas project has not already been broken by this administration, by this current one. We shall maximize the nation's return from oil by turning over future investment to the private sector and by removing the complex structures which makes NMPC's accountability and assessment of efficiency almost impossible. You see, there are so many layers upon layers built on this simple thing, crude oil. I don't even know whether it's oil or some mystery around it that is taking the money from the central bank. You see, I think we would demystify all these things. In my government, the daily export of crude will be published, and the price at which it is sold. You see, the issue of planned implementation is simple. You see, public things are not private. We have National Assembly now. They will do their job. They review the expenditure of government and will hold public hearing. We will no longer be hearing of monetary circulars from central bank. without the bankers being told. The bankers will have to be involved. You see, like I said, every effort has been made in the past to shave people's head in their absence. It must stop. I mean, it won't be allowed. I mean, the cumulative wisdom of all the bankers would have seen us out of the problem we have in this country today. But some people, they come from IMF or they come from World Bank. What do they know about Nigeria? You see, the most brilliant doctor in Norway might not have seen malaria in his life. So bringing him here and imposing him as a medical director is like sending everybody to the grave. You see, I think all that nonsense will stop. I rely on Nigerians to keep Nigeria running efficiently, and that's what it is. You see, there will be a few foreigners who will be recommended by our people, not those who will be imposed by some foreign authorities over us. We are an independent republic under God, or aren't we?
Now, if you listen to him carefully, you'll discover that I'm not seeing the messages yet. The messages are not coming yet. You know, I think maybe I need to do some refreshing before that would happen. I don't know how possible it to be if I refresh. If I refresh, it's going to distort the program. So let me try and refresh. Please hang on for 1 minute. Let me refresh so that I can actually have let's see if I can have the messages return. So let me refresh. Please bear with me with that. Seems we still have same problem. I don't know if this can be resolved today. Okay. It seems I'm going to begin to have messages now because that's showing me something. Social message display here. Click on them to showcase on stream. Okay. So So now it seems messages will come in now. If you say so, send messages. Let me see if it will come now. Maybe I should have done it earlier before now to see, because that's giving me the sign now that messages could be displayed. So now I should be able to see messages now that I have them. But I'm not seeing the people viewing, so that is another problem. So I'm not going to disturb myself about that now for now. But let me see if I can have messages come. So send messages. Let me see. Now, if you discover what he was saying, he was going against what IBB was doing. IBB brought the structural adjustment program. We are waiting. Thank you so much, Eric Barry. I can see the messages now. Good. Thank you so much. They are now displaying. Fulani will never allow a brilliant person like MKO to assume power. Thank you so much, Kunle. Thank you so much. I can see the message now. So I'm going to go to the messages later. Thank God I can see the messages now. So Barry, Eric Barry, your message is the first I could see now. So now, do you know what? If you remember, IBB opened the floodgates to import anything, to bring in anything. Remember, Ahmadu Bello said that if they don't have the professionals, they are going to bring in expatriates to take every sensitive position until the Fulanis are ready to take these positions. So what IBB was doing then was he was bringing much of expatriates. Remember, Abuja, Aso Rock was built by expatriates. He was bringing them into every sector that is sensitive. He gave it over to foreigners, according to what Ahmadu Bello said. Remember, but MKO is now saying that that is nonsense. That is fundamental nonsense. That's why would we be bringing? We are a independent republic under God, which means he was defying the stance of Fulani. He was telling the Fulanis, we're not under you. The Fulanis understood that language very well. And everybody understood that language. He had already projected himself as not going to be loyal to Fulani. Remember, before they allowed election, that MKO became the first to be elected in that republic, they had already finished the program of the Abuja Declaration in 1989. Now I'm going somewhere now. We're going to go higher now for you to understand some stuff. We are still laying the foundation. Now the foundation, the foundation have been laid with the concept of the Abuja Declaration. So now, after the Abuja Declaration, MKO has been brought into the picture. Now let's test the ground with MKO. Let's see how he's going to respond. Because MKO was a Muslim. He was aware of Abuja Declaration. He knew what Britain wants for Nigeria. He had the information. Now he comes in his first campaign promise, and the campaign promise that was groundbreaking. He came to tell everybody that I am not going to submit myself to religion. I'm not going to submit myself to any special, program or hiding and mystifying some things that have to do with the economy, like NNPC. No, I'm not going to give preference for oil wells. That was what he was telling them. 3, I am not going to allow foreigners, again, according to Ahmadu Bello, I have foreigners, it is Nigerians, those who merit it, round peg and round holes. Those who fit, I put. That means no preference. Abiola came after the Abuja Declaration, started saying things that were contrary to the Abuja Declaration, which he, as a Muslim, also should adhere, should be part of. He was saying things contrary to that declaration. The last thing he now said is that we are a republic. We are, that means collectively now, after stating that he's not going to be partisan, he now says that we are now a republic under God. Fulani, no. To Fulani, that means he's not going to be submissive. He's not going to be submissive. He's not going to be submissive. Now, that was what he said. And suddenly, the election was annulled. Now, let me give you 2 stories. Before I play this, the video of after the annulment of the election, and you watch his body language, let me give you a story. This story is unconfirmed. It's not confirmed anyways, but it's one of the stories we heard as young as I was then. I think I heard it in 1994. So after the election was, because during that period, remember, Samuel Doe was killed in 1992 or so. The Liberia War was on, and all of that, and Samuel Doe was killed. Now in 1991, there was that period. We started hearing the story. When Samuel Doe was caught and all of that, we heard the story. I know some of you may have heard the story also. It's not confirmed. I'm not saying I have them. I'm just telling you the story that we heard. I don't know whether it's true or not. So that they won't go and say, can you give evidence and need to sue me to court? So I'm just telling the story of what we heard, but I'm not saying it's true. It's an alleged story. So let me give you the story. We heard, if you listen to the next video, if you're going to listen, when I play the next video, you will hear Abiola say that I and IBB, we have been friends for over 20 years. That means if you calculate it from that 1993 when he was making that interview for over 20 years, meaning that it is I think 1983. Yes, that's about 1983 or in the early 80s, maybe 1980, they became friends. They have been doing business together. Now remember, IBB, if you listen to Fela's song, you'll hear the issue of Abiola, like Obasanjo and Abiola, international thief, this telecommunication business and all of that they started then, where Abiola made money and all of that, those connections. That's, by the way, anyways, I don't have details of the reports. I don't have the evidence of the criminality that took place, but people like Fela and Nicola Pokuti had it, some other people had it, and all of that, how they manipulated the thing to do business. But of course, Fulani already have a grip on him, had a grip on MKO, had a grip on, of course, him. Britain also had a grip on him, because what they do is they first put you in the platform where you can make money criminally, and then they can now use you thinking that you're going to be loyal. But when he made this campaign promise, he was proven not to be loyal, and that's because, of course, he might say that after all, we all did a business. So if I did a business, you did a business. So it's all business. Now, when during the time when Samuel Doe was getting into trouble, we heard, alleged, now it's an alleged story, that Samuel Doe, because of the problem he was going on, remember he was the president of Liberia, when Prince Johnson and Charles Taylor began to come after him. They formed rebel groups and started coming after him. We heard that when he began to see that he was getting into trouble, you remember MKO's wife then, who is Simbiat Abiola, the first wife, not Kudirat, who was killed later on. No, Simbiat Abiola was the first wife. And we heard that Charles Taylor wanted to actually was looking for, sorry, not Charles Taylor, Samuel Doe, who was the president, was looking for where to transfer the monies of Liberia that he had stolen. He didn't want to take it to the Western world. He was looking for a means where they're going to transfer it. And of course, he was a close friend to Abiola, and he was a close friend to IBB. So in an arrangement, they felt that Abiola's wife, Simbiat Abiola, was well positioned since she's just a businesswoman. You know, she was the one who made Abiola anyways. She was the one who brought him to limelight and gave him. Abiola came from a poor, and family and all of that. Simbiat was one of those who boosted him and moved him along and gave him connections and where he was able to make the things he made. So now the story is this: the alleged story. Now it's not. I have not confirmed it. I don't know how true the story is. Was that when Samuel Doe was looking for places to where to send the monies to, Nigeria is one of their strongholds. You know, all these African countries, Nigeria is always their stronghold because they believe Nigeria is the giants of Africa and all of that, and have money and all of that, so they can cover their tracks using Nigeria. And when they have the support of Nigeria, they actually have control and have support and can cover their excesses and their evils and all of that. So Samuel Doe approached them. I approached IBB and his friend Abiola, and they had an arrangement. So since Simbiat Abiola is a businesswoman, Samuel Doe will have to put the monies into Simbiat's account. Nobody will ask Simbiat where you got the money from, because the monies were in dollars, huge money. You can imagine the monies that he has stolen from a nation like Liberia, So they needed a place to, so they had to put the monies in that account. Along the line, Simbiat died mysteriously. Nobody can tell how she died. Some stories say that because of the money, Abiola had to kill her so that he would take over the monies and all of that. We don't know. I can't tell whether it's true, whether he killed her. I can't imagine that he would kill his wife. But it's a story that we heard. It's an alleged stuff. And because of the money, he now plotted her death, according to the story. I don't know whether it's true. I can't say it's true, but it's a story. I'm just telling you the story that we heard. And then when I'm giving you the first story, and I'm going to take you to the next part of this story where we're going to see these things very critically, and all of that. And then so the story now goes that Abiola now plotted, and then Simbiat was killed. And then when Simbiat was killed, then Samuel Doe along the line also was killed, in his place. That means the money now is somewhere else. The money is in Simbiat's account. IBB was asking, this money, we need to share it since this man is dead now. And we know that because the money was supposed to be shared among the three of them, because they're helping him save the money. They're helping Samuel Doe save the money. Now Samuel Doe is dead, have been killed by Prince Johnson and his team and all of that. Now they are looking for IBB asked for the money. And Abiola says he doesn't know where because he doesn't have access to the wife's account. He doesn't have access to Simbiat's account. He cannot trace the money. He cannot trace the account. He doesn't have access to the account, so he doesn't know he doesn't know the particular account she used because he doesn't have details of the account. That was where their problems, began. They started having issue of why can you tell me that you don't know where your wife's money is and all of that. And then that was when he now plotted to see that he's going to deal with Abiola. And so he made sure that Abiola, he already planned how he's going to deal with Abiola by putting everybody, dragging everybody into it in election. And so the issue here is that he now allowed the election to go on, and then intentionally allowed him to spend and spend and spend and spend. If you listen to the next video I'm going to play, Abiola was saying that some of the things they alleged, that were the reasons why they annulled the election was because they said he spent more than necessary for the election. I'm going to play the video. So all these things, when you bring one together, you're going to try to get the truth. But I can't still confirm about the killing of the wife or about this money thing. And then suddenly, the next thing that happens is that he now told him to contest for the election, that he's going to win, and made sure he spent very well for that election, and he won. And he wanted to deal with him to make sure that those money he spent will go down. He will not get the position, and he will make sure he doesn't become the president. He wanted to deal with him based on the fact that that money, he has hijacked it. So that was the story in that regard. But now, since we cannot verify the story, but we are still going to go in line because the story also still makes sense to a point, and of course also still tells us that it is all about games and manipulating Nigerians. Now I'm going to play this video after the election, and when Babangida insisted that the election has been cancelled and nobody can do anything about it. I'm going to play this video, and then I'll now bring up the article of Al-Mustafa and the article of Rice that were in the newspapers during that period, their testimonies and all of that, what they said. I mean, after Mustafa, was jailed and all of that, and then when he came out and when he granted interview after Abacha's death and all of that, and when he granted interview of the things that happened then, what he said about it, and what Rice, said about it. Rice, the United States representative in the United Nations, remember, United Nations again, yesterday we talked about United Nations in the issue of reintegration. Now, United Nations is coming into this matter again on the issue of Abiola. Now, we're going to listen to it. We're going to get the details here. Now, first, let me play the video of Abiola after the election. Now, watch his body language. Listen to his words. Check out the fears he was seeing ahead. And the issue, the story, the question, when they asked him about his relationship with IBB and how he was pessimistic about everything, he started explaining what he's not supposed to explain, talking about even if we have our differences. Now, what is the difference? I linked the difference to this particular story that I just told you now, but I can't conclude on that because I don't have facts to that regard, because I'm not in position to actually go into more investigation, meeting them and discussing and all of that. So I've not done those critical investigations, but from the little I can deduce from this, it's actually there's something related to these, all of these, but I can't verify yet. I can't conclude yet. But for him to, when they ask him that question about what is your relationship with IBB, what he started saying made me also suspect that it is linked to something more than just the election. Now watch this video to the end. Please make sure you listen to it very well, and the body language of Abiola here.
Today, what have you to say about the massive solidarity support that you have received today from the people? I reckon you must have gotten the feedback about how people have gone all over town saying it's you or nobody else.
Well, it is very gratifying. I've always known that the events of the last few weeks have, in fact, enabled people to make up their mind a lot more firmly. In fact, it has increased tremendously the public support that I have in the country. Nigerians are ready for democracy. Nigeria have elected their president, and Nigerians are not prepared to go for another election. The truth of the matter is that you do not have two sunrises in one day. Even in Africa, the sun rises only once a day, and that is the way it is. The people have made it very clear that that is what they want, and I'm sure the purpose is to let government know that the people are very serious in what they are saying.
Do you have any fears that some members of the SDP might give in to the new political arrangement that is being proposed?
There's nothing like that. See, give in to what? What do they give in to? There's nothing to give in to. The election was pronounced fair, free, fair, and peaceful by the international observers and by the government-owned observers themselves. So, what is there to give in to? As a matter of fact, they do not see any reason to prolong the democratic process anymore. And the SDP as a party is very clear. The executive committee made it very clear last week. The meeting in Benin too has made it very, very clear, really doubly clear, that there's no question of the party going back. To go back is to tell the Nigerian people that we are not a serious party. We are a very serious party. There are, we understand, a few officers who are not happy about the result of the election. But a few officers cannot be more important than the generality of Nigerian people. 14 million Nigerian people voted in the last election, more than voted at the National Assembly election, and as a proportion, probably more than have voted in the United States election, presidential election. So that in itself is a massive mandate. And I have 58.9% of the votes. I won in 20 states, and I won the 1/3 of the vote in 28 out of 30 states, and at the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja. There's nothing else.
Do you think the president will backpedal?
Well, it's not a matter of backpedaling. It's a matter of a misunderstanding. He was not accurately informed. For example, there were talks about bribes there were allegations of bribery to NEC. I've already said anybody with proof of that allegation should go to court. Bribery of an electoral officer, of a public officer, is an offense, is really a felony under the law of Nigeria. The matter should be taken to a criminal court. And secondly, there were allegations that the turnout was low. That has been debunked. There were more voters during the presidential election than during the National Assembly elections. So that is not true either. There were allegations that the judiciary is being put into jeopardy or into ridicule. We were able to prove that neither of the two candidates went before any court. It was an illegal organization supposedly being sponsored by the government itself that took matters to court. That has nothing to do with us. There were allegations that large sums of money were spent, 2.1 billion naira. That was not true. I've denied it. The other candidate has denied it. In any case, there is no upper limit to the expenditure that can be incurred by any candidate in the presidential election or in any election under the law of Nigeria. All these are just trumped up charges, excuses as it were, not reasons.
What message do you have, as the last question, to your teeming supporters across the country?
That there is plenty of hope, that there's no doubt at all that the president and the military government will leave office on the 27th of August. And there might be need to meet and discuss some details. And I'm always ready and willing to discuss details. This is not a civilian versus military situation. The preponderant majority of the Nigerian military and their family voted overwhelmingly for me in the last election. So there was no question of the military. There are quite a few, just a few officers who probably are unhappy about the changes. We will give them all the assurances they need. There is room for every Nigerian, especially the top officers who have been trained at tremendous cost to the taxpayers of Nigeria. The list of people which people have alleged have been prepared by me for dismissal or retirement is not true. I have no such list. We need all the soldiers we have in the Nigerian army, especially the senior ones who have been trained at considerable cost to the taxpayers of our country.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Chief Abiola, I'd like to confirm the kind of relationship you have now with the president.
President Babangida is a friend. If you look at the house, take a snapshot of all the pictures in the house, you will find more of his pictures in my house than my own pictures. We've been friends for over 20 years. Very, very close friends. There have been quite a lot of efforts made by some people to create some friction between us. These are very trying period, but friendship is made to last and be passed from one generation to the other. I believe that to be the case in our situation too. These are temporary difficulties. The nation is passing through it. The armed forces, some of them are passing through it, but we will not allow that to affect our relationship.
How do you react then to his comment today that he has no apology for what he has done?
I don't know who is asking him to apologize. Is anybody asking him to apologize? See, a leader does what he believes is the best thing to do in a given circumstance. But a leader, when he has superior facts, can change his mind. That won't amount to apology. And nobody's asking him to. I'm not. Are you?
Are you?
No, I'm not. I'm just asking you. I mean, in what context was that statement made, if I may ask?
It was on the news today. I think we're reviewing the whole issue, the situation, and saying that it stands firmly by what is done. Perhaps has a wind of what the SDP's position is.
Well, I'm not asking him to apologize. I'm just asking that in the light of the popular mandate of the Nigerian people, as a Nigerian too, and as a leader of Nigeria, you should think again. That's all. I'm not asking.
I guess you heard that broadcast very, very well. That's message, that interview very, very well. And you can see from his body language that he's trying to appeal. From his eyes, you'll see that there are so many issues involved. From his body language, you'll understand there are so many issues involved. Now, he raised some concerns. Now, remember, I want to establish the facts that we have already. Remember, before Abiola's time came, the military have been taking over power to buy time for the planning of the Abuja Declaration. Because for any democracy to be instituted, there needs to be a plan according to the order of what they actually want to achieve. Remember, Ahmadu Bello had already stated it, northernization policy and program. For them to achieve this, they need a plan. You don't talk about a program without a plan. But they discover that, you know, the civilian regime may not be effective. It may be, you know, taken over or overwhelmed by the South. So they made sure that the military comes in. Remember, after Obasanjo handed over, you know, in 1979 or so, you know, to Shehu Shagari, suddenly the military came over. Buhari took over. They needed to interrupt so that they can buy time to make sure that that Fulanization program is completed. As soon as the Fulanization program was completed in 1989, when that template was produced by the Arab world and the other Fulani persons in Africa, they now decided to organize an election in Nigeria. That election was is going to be a dummy, you know, plan or a dummy observation or a dummy copy. Let me call it a dummy copy or a premiere to what would come. You know, like a sample, like something that you try to showcase first to observe how it's going to work. And so they felt that since Abiola is a Muslim, he could fit in, and since he's a philanthropist also in that regard, the people would buy into it, because now you remember they wanted to actually the issue of all this while the military has been the north, the Fulani is taking over and over, so they needed to bring a sentiment in here, bring somebody from the Yoruba speaking region but who is a Muslim, and they're going to sample him to see how it will work under democracy with the concept of the template of the Fulanization program, the Abuja Declaration. When Abiola came in, he started speaking of Nigeria. He started speaking of looking, you know, concerned, he's not interested in religion, not interested in securing their oil wells and securing their stealing, strategies, not interested in the way they were running the banks and all of that, not interested in pushing the narrative of bringing in foreigners to take the place where Fulanis cannot occupy for now, because as at that time, the Fulanis did not have the capacity. They were still trying to train them in schools and all of that to get those who will be effective to actually take those positions that they want them to take, those strategic positions, which Ahmadu Bello talked about. And Ahmadu Bello said, if they don't have Fulanis, they are going to get foreigners to occupy those positions. Now, IBB, in the time of his rule and all of that, even after that time, the foreigners, even before them, foreigners have been put in those places. They have been brought to put in those places. Either you see Fulanis, and if it's somewhere that requires much technicality, they bring a foreigner and put them. They have been removing, trying to remove the Southerners from basic, very critical positions and all of that, trying to put foreigners in those places. And IBB now came in and opened the room, opened the doors wide open, brought in more foreigners, to occupy positions that Fulanis cannot occupy for the meantime, and then also brought in different kinds of things who were coming in, different products, so to be as if imports from everywhere. You can import toothpick, you can import anything, and in that regard also they were importing Fulanis. Fulanis were coming with their own AK-47, coming with their weapons. They were strategizing in that regard as at that time. Now, when Abiola now came into the scene, in his campaign, he made it obvious that he was going to discard the policies of Babangida. You remember he said that this mystery they have mystified the oil industry, NNPC, that he's going to publish the daily sales, that's the daily exports of NNPC with the prices attached. He was going to do all of that. That means it's going to affect their oil wells and all the details, all this mystery, he said all these things are nonsense. If you watch him, he was passionate about it and he was talking about these things. And he was going to actually affect their policy and their program as Fulanis. And so they saw that he was a bad decision, even if he was a Muslim. So what they did now was that they were going to annul the election. Of course, I'm not discarding the story of how the issue of Samuel Doe's money and all of that. That can also be part of it, of course. And of course, so remember, Abiola was saying in that interview, he said that we've been friends for 20 years. There are issues. We know we are going to get over it. People have been trying to make us put issues between us and all of that, blah blah blah. All these things have different meanings. It simply means that there is something about their relationship that has to do with the annulment rather than just the process. It's something that has to do with their relationship in connection to the annulment. But let's look at the ideas they gave in the annulment. The reasons they gave. The first reason they gave is that that bribery, that he bribed NEC. Then it was called NEC, National Electoral Commission, not INEC. Then it was called NEC. And they said he bribed NEC. And of course, obviously, we know that as at that time, even if there might have been some stuff which they also got involved in. But he said, if you want to do this, try me in court and let anybody come and prove it in court. I am here, I'm not running. So that should not have been the reason why they annulled the election. Because if there is that case, then they should have taken it to court. That means it was not the reason. Now they talked about the turnout of voters was too low, but of course we have about 14 million voters who voted, more than even what the United States voting, and more than Abiola mentioned it, and more than so many votes and all of that, even of the Senate and House of Representatives vote in the Nigeria contraption. So he had much people turning out to vote. So the issue of he had about 50-something.8% of the vote. He mentioned it here now and all of that. So that shouldn't have been the reason for the election, because he won in about 28 states. That's what he said. He won in 28 states. That means he beat the record and the standard. So that wouldn't have been a reason why he was not given, why the election was annulled. That means there's something more to it. They talk about the judiciary being in jeopardy and ridicule. The two candidates, as you heard him mention, none of them actually sued. The government sued anything. They never did anything about with the courts. It is only the government that even began to use the courts to manipulate. And they also talked about spending large sums of money, billions, about 2.1 billion naira. as at then, 1993, they talked about spending $2.1 billion on the election, and they said the money was too much. But and Abiola said that is not true. I didn't spend such kind of money. That means the intention was to make him spend and spend and spend, and then they're going to use it against him that he has spent so much. So all of these were put together to give frivolous reasons why they had to annul the election. But the truth about it is that Abiola had already told them that he was not going to actually effectively and possibly implement the Abuja Declaration. So he was flawed. Even if he was a Muslim, he was flawed. But now, you remember, After that, what they need to do was this. They now thought that the strategy, the best way to make sure that this Abuja Declaration works is to stop the election and then reconstruct the constitution. Because if you bring anybody in with the Abuja Declaration is not the constitution of Nigeria. Abuja Declaration is about all the African states becoming, Fulanized and Islamized. But in each of these nations, which they are calling Nigeria nation, which even if Nigeria is not a nation, they need to transform the constitution to reflect the Abuja Declaration. So they thought that, this man, it seems we have done it wrongly. If we allow Abiola come in, the fact that the constitution has not reflected Abuja Declaration, he's not going to, even no matter what he says here, even if he comes to tell us that he's going to actually do according to our will, he doesn't have a constitution to back that up. So we need to adjust the constitution to make sure that when anybody comes, whether the person is from the south, whether the person is from the north, whether the person is from anywhere, the person will not have a choice than to do what we tell him to do according to the Abuja Declaration. So what they now did was they started buying time, called the military personnel, and of the Fulani, groups and all of that, brought them together, called few people that are loyalists. They started redesigning the constitution, design the constitution, which we now have, the 1999 constitution, to make sure that it gives room for Fulanization. They brought in Sharia into it. They brought in some other clauses into it that will help them facilitate and do what they want to do without you being able to sue them or to actually put them under control and all of that. So they now bought time after annulling that election, knowing that Abiola, with this his statements and all of that, does not have a basis. They cannot hold him if he doesn't go according to the their program. So they needed to bring a system or a structure, restructure the system by carrying out a constitutional review and restructuring of the constitution to fit and to actually carry the content that the Abuja Declaration provides. That is how you come to know about creating more states, making sure that they expand the territory of the North to get more senators into and representatives into the House, to make sure that the Constitution, they promise you so many things, but you cannot hold them on the promises, to make sure that they manipulate the Constitution to actually suit what they can do in the context of using democracy as a weapon. Now remember, Usman Danfodio's time has passed, has elapsed, because you cannot use that strategy. No more time. You come carry spear and horses and started killing people and attacking. No, this time around, you need the instrumentation of democracy and the instrumentation of technology to take over, because the system has changed. So they started training their men inside, train their men to understand these things. They started importing foreigners to take positions so that they will buy time before their men begin to replace those foreigners. And then they now designed the concept of the template of the Abuja Declaration. They now brought in Abiola into it. But from Abiola's statement, they discovered that they didn't actually complete this process. They needed to adjust the constitution to make sure that it is more effective, so that no matter what anybody comes to say in their campaign promise, they will still not be able to do without or going contrary to the Abuja Declaration. So they now stopped that election and decided to go to work. They brought Shonekon, first interim, and they put a gun in his head. He was ruling under the military dictatorship, or under the dictation of the military. The military was dictating everything. Abacha was dictating everything until he was told to step down, and then Abacha took over. Abacha now was supposed to now make himself president so that he would be the first to implement the concept of the Abuja Declaration and institute the structure that will actually position the North and the Fulanese strategically to occupy and all that. But he went extreme because he was now becoming selfish about it. And along the line, he was taken away. And then they now brought in, the issue of this man who now came. After that, they had already rushed to make sure that the constitution was completed, because they know that Abacha was going to be tough for them too, because he was also selfish, in spite of the fact that he was also implementing their program. But he was being selfish. They needed somebody who is going to play ball. They are going to chop and all of that. Everything will flow, in that regard. So they now finished the constitution thing quickly and then instituted this man, what's his name now, Abdusalami, who now came, and quickly they brought a man from prison who would have no choice We have saved your life, so you must do according to what we have done. We have said. He came on, he was a toothless man. He got there, he couldn't do anything. That is Abiola. Sorry, Obasanjo. He now played the program of Fulani, killed us, did a lot of things, helped them to institute the Sharia, to implement the Sharia in the north, and was pushing that narrative of the Islamization program of the Abuja Declaration, bringing it to pass. So you see now, it was effective because the constitution had been adjusted. The constitution had been adjusted. Now let me play the confession of because I'm going to be opening something to you now from this point. Just because of time, I'm going to be opening something to you. If I don't get completed in this session, I will have to move it to the next session. But let me play the confession, the narrative of Al-Mustafa that he gave about Abiola's killing. And then we're going to look at the confession. And then we're going to link it to the United Nations reintegration program and how this is playing out in the process from the time before now. So when you hear Antonio Guterres say that they actually are reintegrating the Fulanese, you will come to understand it better with this concept of this United States representative in the United Nations and the role of the United Nations in the concept of Abiola. Remember, Abiola had been silenced. He had been killed. But before he was killed, some things happened. Let's look at these issues here now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share screen on that report so that you can actually have the details. Al-Mustafa reveals how Abiola was killed. So let me share screen on that so that you can get the details of that. So please bear with me. We're going to be doing lots of analysis here so that our people will understand when we talk about freedom, we know what we're talking about. When we talk about freedom, we know what we're talking about. When we talk about getting free, being free, we know what we're talking about. When we talk about being free, we know what we're talking about. So you're going to look at this document right now and all of that, and then you are going to understand the concept here. Now, I want you to look at this document here. Al-Mustafa reveals how Abiola was killed. You're going to look at his testimony, and then we're also going to look at the testimony of Rice, Condoleezza Rice, the United States representative. So, we're going to look at her submission also in that regard. So let's go to this document now. Let's go to this document right now, and let's see what is being said there. Let's go to the document. Al-Mustafa, the title is Al-Mustafa reveals how Abiola was killed, those who took money from Abacha. Now, that is the first. So let's look at him and let's look at the details of what they're saying here about him. Now, let's read fast because of time. Hamza Al-Mustafa, a former national security advisor to ex-head of state, has opened up on the circumstances surrounding the death of MKO Abiola, acclaimed winner of the June 12, 1993 election. They are saying acclaimed when actually he won it, And so Mustafa disclosed that leaders of NADECO went to the presidential villa, Abuja, to collect millions of dollars barely 24 hours after Abiola. That means as soon as Abiola was killed, they were brought in to collect their money to shut up. So you see that speaking on people, politics, and power, Mustafa said Abiola died in Aguda house, taking a cup of tea. That's what he said. So now, that's what Mustafa said. According to Mustafa, if Abiola was alive, he would have been one of my witnesses, which I know wouldn't have happened. We should be looking at the larger issues. The question is, why should Abiola be killed, and why should they be angry that I am asking these questions? Now, okay, now let's go further. Let's go further. Let me take it up now so that you can, his responses here, his statements here are sentimental anyways. You can read the sentiments in between lines. So let's go on then. It says, they should support me to uncover that first. Those who killed Abiola shared money, and I don't. So they are defending those who killed him, and attacking me who has no money to share. Now, he was actually referring to NADECO, who were those who were behind Abiola, telling him, go, we are behind you, pushing him not to renounce the mandate they have given to him. They were pushing him until he came to his death. And then in less than 24 hours, they were already in Aso Rock. They collected money and they shut up and they said everything is okay. Now let's read on. Ayo Opadoku Ayo Opadoku also. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. I think my Oduduwa brothers will tell me if I'm wrong or right. Opadoku. I know P is always Padoku, who is busy insulting now and claiming he has never been to Abuja after Abiola was killed, was flown in a presidential aircraft to the villa. That was the same millions of dollars were brought from the central bank and shared among some Yoruba leaders. I hope you are saying that. I was at the villa trying to hand over to the head of state, and at that material time, some Yoruba leaders on Deco came furious, charging and wanted to fight the government over the murder of Abiola. They came to fight too. They came to fight. Then see what happened when they came to fight. I taped their arrival at the presidential villa, and if you watch it, all sorts of nasty comments about sacrificing for the Yoruba nation. You could see the bitterness. When they went in and came out, their attitude changed. They were clapping, chatting within themselves. When journalists asked about the meeting with the then head of states, the same Opadoku said the matter of Abiola is gone and that is no longer an issue. It is a forgotten issue and we are going to forge ahead. We are going to forge ahead. I'm just reading stories so you get this detail. Then I'll go into the narrative. Abiola was killed a few hours ago. This is the same man he, Opadoku, and Nadeko members claim to be fighting for. But when they met the head of state, their remarks changed. However, now that I am talking about the same man, I am now an enemy. Abiola was in the parlor in Aguda House when he was administered a tea, after which he fell on his face. Now remember, Al Mustafa said he was administered a tea, which he fell on his face. That means he took the tea before he fell on his face. You're going to hear the report of Rice, different from what Al Mustafa said here. And was gasping for air before he died. This became a big issue. So that is the report from that. So now we're going to go to Rice's report here. We are going to hear what Rice said. That tells you that they actually killed him because they have known that the program, including the United Nations, know that Abiola being part of this will not work for the plan of the caliphate. And so they needed to do something else to remove him from the scene. I'm going to bring another report here, how Abacha died by Susan Rice, not Condoleezza Rice, sorry, Susan Rice, sorry. I'm sorry for that miscalculation there. Susan Rice. This is the report of Susan Rice now. I want you to look at the report of Susan Rice. So let's go there now. Susan Rice, how Abacha died. Let's go to the narrative of Susan Rice, how Abacha Abiola died by Susan Rice. So we're going to be looking at the statement on the issue of Abiola here. To this day, many people in Nigeria think I killed him. That's Susan Rice saying this now. Now let's read on. That was the opening line in the reflecting account of the last hour of the late Bashorun Moshood Kashimawo Olawole Abiola, as told by Ambassador Susan Rice. Ambassador Susan Rice is, you will see, you will get to know when we read further, you know Susan Rice, who she is. She was one of the visiting American diplomats in whose presence the presumed winner of the 1993 presidential election died on 7th July 1998. About 5 years after the annulment of the election. The election was annulled June 12, 1993, and he died July 7th. 5 years, 1 month, and about 4 days after the annulment of the election. More significantly, Rice was the one who served Abiola the famous last tea. It's the famous last tea. For the last 21 years, the former national security advisor to President Barack Obama, has refrained from speaking on what exactly happened that day. But in her memoir, Tough Love, My Story of the Things Worth Fighting For, Rice recounts not only how Abiola died, but also confirmed the street gossip about the last hour of the late General Abacha. So Abacha is not the issue here. Let's look at Abiola now. In the memoir, Rice also recounts how she was conceived in Lagos during the 2 years her parents spent in Nigeria. That means she was born in Lagos. At a time, her father was helping in the establishment of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, after independence. So they have been there for long. So they know the plan of the British. They know the plan of the Caliphate. They are the ones who instituted all of this. They were part of those instituting the Central Bank, where the money was taken to give to Nadeko and Yoruba leaders to actually cover the issue and not to talk about the issue of the death of Abiola anymore. I hope you guys are getting this narrative very well. Let me put the screen fully so that you can see it well. You can see it better now. So let me go there. As the American diplomat with Africa, as her brief, Rice also recalls many of the crises on the continent. Especially, that's what they do when they want to talk about one matter. They will want to bring everything. They want to jumble everything, talking about the continent to confuse you, to make it look like it's about it's not about one particular country. It's about what they want to be, the interest they have for every country, and how they are trying to see that everything gets better. Especially the one that eventually led to the death of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, and the encounter she had at different times with African leaders, including former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who on one occasion was nonchalantly hauling well-picked chicken bones, much to our amusement, backward over his shoulders across the presidential seat. Now let's begin with the story of one of the most momentous period of Nigeria's political history. From Rice, a former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. You see it again? A former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. A former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. The United Nations, representing all the nations of the world, came to Abuja through Rice. Rice, representing all the nations of the world, came to Abuja to spearhead the killing of Abiola, because Abiola's program is going to counter the program of Islamization, and it's not going to work for the Abuja Declaration Plan, or according to the Abuja Declaration Plan. The death of Abiola. Let's look at Abiola here now. In early July 1998, I traveled to Nigeria with Undersecretary of the State for Political Affairs, Tom Pickering, who was then amongst the most senior career foreign service officers. As Assistant Secretary of State for Africa Affairs, she was also Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs. I had gotten to know Pickering, my immediate boss, as a wise, fast-talking, and deeply knowledgeable diplomat. That's how they do it. That's how they roll. Let's read on. Having served as ambassador to 6 major countries and the United Nations, Pickering had been and heard almost everything. The purpose of our trip to Nigeria was to encourage a responsible political transition. Encourage a responsible political transition. How come Abiola's transition, the transition to Abiola's government, into Abiola's government, is not responsible? How come it is not a responsible one? How come they have to go and they have to come to Abuja to have a meeting with Abiola rather than them insisting that Abiola should be given his mandate? Because that is responsible, that is more responsible. How come they are talking about the purpose of our trip to Nigeria? Why must you take a trip to Nigeria to discuss with Abiola? What do you want to tell Abiola when he already had a vote? Are you supposed to be discussing with Abiola, or you're supposed to be discussing with Abacha? Why Abiola? Because he already has his vote. The discussion here is not supposed to be with Abiola. It's supposed to be with the dictator. Oh, sorry. Yes, the dictator, who is Abacha, who was still Abdul Salami and co. Abacha was dead now. Was Abdul Salami and all of them who are there now sitting in a position that belongs to Abiola. But now they are talking about encourage a responsible political transition. What transition are they talking about when there's already an election that has been held and somebody has taken over? United Nations representative is coming to tell the Nigeria government to talk about how they can encourage a responsible political transition. So they have to discuss with MKO about a political transition, a responsible, listen to that word, that adjective there, responsible political transition. Responsible, listen to that adjective again, responsible political transition, which means that what Abiola had was not responsible. Abiola's stuff does not go in line with the plan, so it's not responsible. So they need to come and discuss with him because they need to have a responsible transition. Now listen to it further so you understand it better. You understand? The nasty former dictator Sani Abacha had died a month earlier in the company of prostitutes. That's their business. They want to distract us. That's not the issue. Vigra was the responsible reported involvement. Why are you mentioning his death? It doesn't have to end. You want to make us believe now that after all, this one too died. So everybody have a reason to die. So this one also that is going to die, you shouldn't take it seriously because even Abacha himself died. So that's not the issue. They shouldn't distract us with that. So his interim successor was a moderate leader, Abdusalami Abubakar. They called him moderate because he was still refusing to give Abiola his mandate. So he's moderate by insisting that Abiola must step down. Who hoped to shepherd, he said he was a moderate leader who hoped to shepherd Nigeria through a democratic election to select its new leader. So you see, that responsible political transition is for another election to be held, which they will never allow Abiola win. And they know that for that to happen, Abiola will not accept. He has refused, which means he's proven tough to the caliphate and to the United Nations. So they have to get rid of him because he will not allow a responsible political transition to take place. So Abiola will not allow a responsible political transition that is in line with the Abuja Declaration to take place. So they have to now make it look like they're going to have a meeting with him, since they've been talking to him all this while and he's insisting that he is the president. They must give him his mandate. So they needed to have a meeting with him, and then in that meeting, it will be a formal assassination with the presence of the United Nations, the dictators, and some of the Yoruba people who have collected money and some other people who have collected money, Fulanis and other people from other tribes. A primary objective of our visit was to meet the wrongfully imprisoned opposition leader. He's now called an opposition leader. The one who won the election is now an opposition leader, which means that the regime of the military is justifiably correct. And Abiola was opposing to a justifiable or a justified regime. to visit was the objective of our visit was to meet the wrongfully imprisoned opposition leader. The issue is not about being imprisoned. They just want to make you feel good using the adjective wrongfully imprisoned. But they now called him opposition leader. That is where the message is in. That's where the message is. Moshood Abiola. He was the presumed winner of Nigeria's 1993 election, but the result was annulled and he was later arrested. We hope to negotiate his freedom so that he could participate in the upcoming election. Now, you can imagine a democracy as America, United Nations, and all of these nations talking about participating in another election when the previous election has not been proved to be illegal. When they know, it's just like after the election in America now, Biden won, and then now Trump says no, and then Trump says they have to have another election, and then United Nations will now come and says, let's come to talk with Biden and see that he participates in the next election. That is, what do you call that? Obstruction of justice. What do you call that? That is illegal. That is criminal. Abiola won by majority. There is no proof that he didn't win or the election was flawed. In fact, it was termed the freest and fairest so far in the history of Nigeria. Yet, he wasn't given the platform. Yet, United Nations could talk about negotiate his freedom so that he could. That means the negotiation here is that, see, please, it's very simple. Please don't talk about this election that is already passed. Leave it alone. Just join in participating in the next election, because they know they are going to rig it as usual and he's not going to win. So they are telling him now that they want to, but they have planned to kill him because they know they don't want him, because the people may overwhelmingly give him the mandate again, but he's not going to go according to, he's not going to satisfy the Abuja declaration. He's not going to go according to plan. He's not someone they have seen that will be loyal to the Abuja declaration. So the best thing that they will do is to kill him. Now listen, let's read further. Along with Pickering and U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, Bill Twaddell, I met Mr. Abiola in an austere government guest house on the vast presidential complex in the capital of Abuja. A large and imposing man. Abiola came with his minder shortly after we arrived. Okay. Pickering, a former ambassador to Nigeria, knew Abiola from years past and agreed and greeted him warmly. Abiola, a robust and happy. Abiola, robust and happy to see us, sat on the couch and began to tell us how poorly he has been treated during his 4 years in prison. This man has been in prison for 4 years for his offenses that he won an election. He was wearing sandals and multi-layered traditional Nigeria dress. I noted that his ankles were swollen. After 5 minutes into the conversation, Abiola started to cough. Now listen to this lady. She never said that Abiola was given tea first. She said, now remember, Al Mustafa said that Abiola started fainting when he received the tea. But here now, Rice is telling us that Abiola came happy and joyful and was discussing about how he was maltreated and all of that, and then started coughing. Now, before the tea was given. Now listen. At first, mildly and intermittently, and then wackly with consistency. He said he was hot. So I asked him dutiful minder, please turn up the air conditioner. So I asked his dutiful, okay. So I asked his dutiful minder, please turn up the air conditioning. Noticing a tea service on the table between us. Imagine this woman. Noticing a tea service on the table between us. You just see tea on the table. How did the tea get there? Who was the tea for? You didn't ask. You just said, Noticing a tea service on the table between us, I offered Abiola, would you like some tea to help calm your cough? Now, how can a reasonable person ask someone for a formal meeting like that, a tea that you don't know what is in it, what you don't know what it is there for, or whether it is for somebody else? You have not even asked who owns the tea. The tea was just there. It was not in front of anybody because it has to be in front of somebody on the table where you guys were sitting. You can't just see tea somewhere and you're asking somebody who is coughing, which you now say that the person was already coughing and was already dying, before you now ask the person whether the person wants tea. Al Mustafa said that he was just there and then he was given the tea before he started coughing. Now Rice is saying that after he started coughing and the thing started getting very serious, she now saw tea that she doesn't know where the tea is coming from. She just saw tea on the table. She just saw tea somewhere and was asking Abiola, should I give you some of this tea that I don't know who made it and how they made it and what it is meant for? She just asked, should I give you tea? And Abiola said, yes. Abiola said, yes. Okay, let me go to, sorry, please. Let me go to the message here. And Abiola said, yes. He said, with appreciation. Somebody who was already dying, he was appreciating. And I poured him a cup. Now, she just saw tea. She doesn't know who kept the tea. She's telling us now that all the while she sat there before Abiola came, she never knew who kept the tea there. That means she came into that place, the tea was there. Abiola came in there to meet the tea. Abiola started talking and discussing and telling them how he's been suffering. And then suddenly Abiola started coughing and it started getting worse. And then she now saw the tea that was already there, that she didn't know who kept it there. She now asked Abiola, do you want tea? Abiola said yes and appreciated her. He sipped it, but continued coughing increasingly, uncomfortably. That means the problem was not the tea I served him. The problem was that he was already coughing before I gave him the tea. He was already getting worse before I gave him the tea. But the tea was I was giving the tea to help him, but the thing was still getting worse because it was already happening to him before the tea. Abiola removed his outer layer, leaving one layer on top. I shot Pickering a worried glance. The coughing became dramatic. I told the assembled men, I think we better call for a doctor. No one argued. The minder immediately placed the call. Abiola asked to be excused and went into the bathroom of our meeting room. When he emerged, he was bare-chested and sweating profusely, barely able to talk. He lay down on the couch, writhing, and then rolled face down onto the floor. Now, you see now, she now said, he now rolled face down onto the floor. But Al Mustafa said when he drank that tea, that was when he now rolled face down. But now she's now saying that he was already getting worse before she now gave him the tea. But Al Mustafa says he was okay before he was given the tea. But Rice says he was already bad. That tells you it was a planned work. The doctor arrived promptly, took a quick look at him, and declared that Abiola was having a heart attack and must be transported to the hospital immediately. The men labored to lift the heavy Abiola into a small car, and we rushed to the nearby rudimentary presidential hospital. I grabbed his eyeglasses off a side table where he left them. His only belonging, thinking of his daughter, half sat in the US, whom I had met before we left. The doctor worked on him and furiously, but within an hour they pronounced him dead. We braced for violence. Abiola suddenly, we braced for violence. Abiola sudden and mysterious death could hit like a bombshell in Nigeria's political tinderbox. Conspiracy theories would spread like metastatic cancer. Serious unrest throughout Nigeria was possible. Washington could be hyperventilated. Okay, hyperventilate. Since it's not every day a major figure drops dead with senior US officials. Okay, his family would need to be told, and urgently. These are all sentiments that came after that. But the issue here is this. As you have seen here, the issue here is that the story no balance. Story no balance. Am I correct? Now, it is evident that Abiola does not fit in the program of the responsible political template. He must be taken down. And that's the deed. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to give more details of this particular aspect of the narrative I want to give now next time, because it's already 2 hours plus. I thought I was not going to exceed 2 hours, but I've exceeded 2 hours. So let me go straight to the messages. So we have few messages. I think we have more messages, but we just have few here, which only show here. So if I don't read your messages, just know that something went wrong. You know, we are waiting. Okay. Barry talking about okay, Barry, Eric, thank you. Fulani says Fulani will never allow a brilliant person like MKO to assume power. It's not about brilliance. It's about submission to the will of Fulani that is designed in the template of the Abuja Declaration. Noelin Adjambo says hi. Okay, Noelin, good. I'm here, Clement. Good to see you here. As usual, you're always here to support also. I'm here. Thank you so much, Clem. I'm delighted to have you. Daluwan, one name Madu. Mwapa, Mitchell. Thank you so much, Mitchell. It's been a while I saw you, Mitchell. Good to see you again here. Thank you. And British, Noelin Adjambo, okay. Referring to Fulani and British there, yes. Onka Tony says, God bless you. Magic Kelechi, right on. Thank you so much, Onka. Thank you for that comment. Patrice Lumumba of Congo was labeled a communist, killed by Belgium UN with the help of the CIA and M16. And it's the same reason MKO, Abiola, and Gaddafi, how long would they keep Africa in dark? Because they have to institute, until that program is fulfilled, they will not rest. And that is why we said we will not allow Nigeria exist in the next 74 days. Because if we don't do it fast, this program you are seeing, this their Fulanization program, is real. It's real. Good evening, Kelechi. Thank you so much, John Almeida. Thank you so much. Good evening from here too. We have Dollar Fox, 73 days to go. We Biafrans ready to go? Very well, we are ready to go, and that is why we are here discussing things that concerns us. Gaddafi was killed by the CIA. Ahaya says Gaddafi was killed by the CIA because he was about to unite Africa into one currency, gold, which would have been the end of US dollars. Same reason why MKO Abiola was killed. That is it. Once the policy goes against them, they come for the person. Diana says the Southern Nigeria politicians are criminals. They don't care about their citizens because of their selfish wickedness, corruptions. They are playing the program of the Fulani. It has to be the program of the Fulani. If you don't fit in that program, you will not be given the opportunity. Anyone whom you see that is thriving in the political space from the South today is a stooge and has promised and has vowed and has sworn an oath, whether by sex, having sex with the Fulani male, you know, they are homosexuals. You've heard it when Mazin Namkan said it, you know, by having that covenant by sex, or given that opportunity to steal money and make sure they have something that will hold against you, you know, you must be their stooge, any means, anyhow, before they will allow you to thrive. But they are using you by contract. You are playing that role as a political person based on contracts. Remember what Amadou Bello said. If we don't find a Fulani to put there, because the plan has not gone well for us to put a Fulani there, that's what it means, we will bring an expatriate. Once we discover an expatriate is not going to, you know, serve the purpose, we are going to bring an indigenous person, but on contract. Every of these stooges who are governors, who are political people in the South, are only there on contract. Once Fulani takes over, they are going to eliminate all of them and take over their positions, put Fulanis in that position. So all they needed to do is to use their foot soldiers to invade other communities, as they did to the Hausa nation. And then if you go to the Hausa nation today, every governor is a Fulani person. Almost all the governors are Fulanis, almost all. The same thing they are doing in the South. The South, the reason why Fulanis are not governors is because they have not successfully conquered them as they conquered the Hausas. As soon as that is done, you see all these ones posing as governors, they will eliminate all of them. And then they will put their men as governors. So let's look at Kingsley Odumegu's statement. He says, Ecclesiastes 4:14. This verse in the Bible refers to a former Nigerian president. All right. Ecclesiastes 4:14. This verse, okay. You're talking about that, okay. The same thing you posted here. Let me see. The next also is the same thing you posted. Okay. So people can check it out and see what Kingsley is talking about. Master Kelechi, you are doing a good job. Please keep it up. Thank you so much, Machi Best Channel. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for the compliment. Noelin says, or knowing what was in the tea. That's it. You give somebody tea, you just saw tea. A whole rice, Susan Rice, a UN representative, a diplomat, just see tea on the table and begin to give to somebody who is dying. You see that sometimes when people want to be criminal, they become foolish. How can you give us this narrative? How can you give us this narrative? Very childish narrative. We're going to talk more on this when I have another time. So let me just do the message quickly because of the time's against us. At all. Let's check it out. Noelin says at all. Okay. It was deliberate, carefully planned so as to close anything June 12th. That's it. And aside that, to make sure they remove him from the scene because he's not going to run the Fulani program. Now remember, Orange Man says the British tactics taught Fulani the power. Yes, taught the Fulani the power of the act of power and power and control. Yes, they taught them. They actually designed the program and put them in. Now, MKO was removed because he's not going to serve the purpose. Now, remember, I gave you the lineup. They had to use military to prolong the time until they established the Abuja Declaration, and then they now fixed election. They discovered that MKO does not fit into it and will not actually be effective on it. They removed him. Then they discovered that they need to adjust the constitution. They quickly adjusted the constitution, and then they now made another, election and brought in. And of course, in spite of the fact that Obasanjo came in, he couldn't stop the Sharia program in the north because it's already in the constitution. It has been adjusted, so there's no way he could stop it. But if Abiola was there, maybe Abiola would have allowed, or maybe he wouldn't have allowed. But the way Abiola was going, he was not going to be loyal to the Fulanis by what he says, by his utterances and all of that. So they saw him as a danger. So, but Obasanjo cannot stop them from instituting Sharia because it's already in the constitution. The same way all the governors and all of that cannot stop them from invading Biafra land because in the constitution they have the right to do so. Because they are operating based on the template of Nigeria, which is a program of the Abuja Declaration. Abuja Declaration has the name Nigeria there, and that name Nigeria belongs to Fulani, and Britain owns that name, given the mandate to Fulani. Nna Patience says, greetings to you, my brother. Well done with your good job. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to stop here for now. We're going to continue tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be explosive. We're going to be talking more on this matter, but I'm going to have some guests in the house, including guests from the Oduduwa side, and also guests from Biafra side who are going to be with us discussing this matter critically. I've just opened it up now. Tomorrow we're going to look at it critically more and look deeper into the facts. But remember, the reason why MKO was killed has been said. We have discovered it, and how he was killed has been discovered. The United Nations was present. The United Nations was present. The US was present. The indigenous people were present. The Fulanis, the foreigners, Fulanis who came to invade were present. And all of these were the instrument of eliminating Abiola. And these are the details. So please like this video, share it on all your social media platforms. Let people hear this message and get the details. And also subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. And please be here tomorrow, 4 p.m. Biafra time. We're going to be looking at more into this matter. We're going to have Oduduwa, 2 personalities from Oduduwa Nation, and then from Biafra Nation also. We're going to have people here, and we're going to be discussing critically on this matter We're going to look critically more into it and how this reflects and how this implies to what is happening right now, so that you will understand that it is all about Fulanization. It's not about election. It is not about democracy. It's about Takia, the concept of using democracy as a tool and also using the concept of the Abuja Declaration as a tool. These are the two materials. That is why they were able to change the constitution and all of that to suit the program of the Abuja Declaration. And then they now instituted the concept of democracy into the scope, so that it will become a takia to you. It will look like the real thing. That is why you see people jostling for the election. They don't understand the undertone of election in the Abuja Declaration and in the concept of Fulanization. It's a different design. That's why the constitution was adjusted for this. Let me not go deep into this. We're going to talk more on this tomorrow as we look at these details. But I want to assure you that we have gotten Biafra. They can't stop us with all their nonsense. They can't stop us. We are determined and we are going home, and nothing can stop us from going home. Thank you all. I appreciate you all. I thank you for your messages. I want to appreciate you all that sent messages, and I want to appreciate those also who are watching. I don't know, the messages are not much because of the problem we have had and all of that, because we couldn't see all of this. But I know that you have gotten some insight into the killings of Abiola and all of that, and I've given you some details. So go on and listen to it again, and then and then you will come to understand the details. Kingsley says Ecclesiastes 4:14. Of course, he quotes it there. He says, "Out of prison he cometh to reign, whereas also he that is born in his kingdom becometh poor." So how does this relate to Obasanjo? My brother, you're funny. Says relates to Obasanjo. Oh my. Oh my God. Well, it relates anyways in a sense, but it actually is not talking about Obasanjo in this context. Even if figuratively you can apply it to mean that, sometimes we apply some stuff to mean some stuff figuratively in the way we want to analyze them, but critically in the literal sense of it, it's actually not talking about and so that's it for today. I want to appreciate you all. Tomorrow 4 p.m. you can't miss it. You'll be here. You're going to hear from Oduduwa people. You're going to hear. Tomorrow is the Alliance and Focus, and we're going to be looking critically also in this matter, critically in a different perspective now, because it requires more analysis and more details to actually get it done and all of that. I appreciate you all. I love you all. Thank you so much for being part of this broadcast, and I appreciate you. Please share this video on all the social media platforms and like it, and also subscribe to the channel if you have not. God bless you real good.